This is hopefully the most embarrassing video I'm ever going to have to make. One where I have to admit loads of mistakes and hopefully save you guys from making the same mistakes. We're going to be delving into the murky world of toxicity, of paint toxicity in particular, and risks and damages to humans like skin problems, lung disease and cancer even, as well as risks to the environment. And there are things which I have been doing wrong, which I just did not know I had been doing wrong. So this is an apology video, which hopefully will go some way to helping other people who might be making the same mistakes as me not make those same mistakes in the future. So with that, let's have a look. What is this problem? What is this sort of dark secret, the murky world of toxicity in watercolor paints? So I said some scary things, and they're supposed to be a bit scary because I do want to really make a point in this video that things aren't as simplistic and carefree as I often make out, or I didn't realise they had these potential things we needed to think about. The other side is that there isn't actually very much evidence for anything I'm about to say. We know that certain parts of our paints are bad, but it's very difficult to extrapolate that to the amount of paints that we're actually using, how we're using them, and what happens to them downstream. So perhaps I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill. Perhaps there is no real problem and I'm just worrying myself for no reason. However, the thing is, some of these things do have real issues. Toxic paints can pose significant health risks. That's what I want to get across first, both to us, the artists, and to the environment if we don't care for them properly. And firstly, I just want to list out the sort of potentially key toxins, key toxic compounds, and explain why they're harmful to us or the environment. At the top of the list, we have cadmium in place 1. It's a group 1 human carcinogen. It can cause lung and prostate cancer, bone and kidney disease, skin irritation, amongst many others, commonly found in reds, oranges and yellows. Next, we have my beloved cobalt, which I'm so sad to see there. And that can cause lung disease, especially on prolonged inhalation, including a condition called hard metal lung disease. It can also cause skin irritation, which is a common theme in many of these paints. The next on the list is chromium. Chromium in some forms can be inhaled and cause lung cancer. And then we have others like nickel, zinc and copper, which have various degrees of effect depending on prolonged exposure, skin contact and things like that. In the environment, of course, all of these things can be improperly disposed of. They are toxic to animals in the same way they're toxic to us, but they might not know not to eat a lump of paint out in the garden, for example. They can enter the water systems, they can cause harm to fish, and these heavy metals in particular can accumulate within fish and then re-enter the human food circulation in much the same way. And similarly, if we just chuck them onto soil, it can harm the soil, destroy the sort of environment for growing good quality crops, and enter the human food sort of circulation again. So we need to be getting this right, and this is something I hadn't fully realised. How though can we find out if things are toxic? Well, if you take your pen, if you pick it up, if you take your paint tube and you pick it up and you turn it over, you'll see on the back potentially some labelling. So if we look here, for example, we have an ACMI label. That is the Art and Creative Materials Institute. And here it says AP, approved product. Brilliant. That means it should be safe to use and safe to dispose of. We can find that same label, for example, over here on lavender. This is a lavender paint by Daniel Smith and it has AP on the back. Mead and Art, a budget brand, they also have this, and they also have this rather nice non-toxic brand on the back as well. Very clear, very easy. If we look on the back of cobalt blue and cerulean blue chromium, so we know those are toxins now, well, we'll see a P65 label. This is a label which basically means it can cause some kind of harm or cancer. And this is something from California, where they have very strict labelling laws. You'll also see the absence of an ACMI AP label. What you might also see is a caution label, so an ACMI and it will say caution on it instead of approved product. And when you see that, or the absence of an AP label, you should be thinking, oh, this might be toxic, I need to do some thinking. However, it gets murkier, more challenging, because look, zinc we know is potentially toxic, potentially can cause some harm, and it's still an approved product. And why is this? I'm not sure. I think there must be some level of barrier that it has to breach before it's toxic enough to be labelled as toxic. So perhaps we need to either be more thorough or more cautious with all of our paints and all of our supplies, rather than just dealing with them all in the same way. The same labels, as I say, are on lots of things, from pens to brush pens to our acrylic markers. It's a widespread label, and one I was not aware of, and I feel very silly for not knowing about it. It's not on everything. So if we look at these Derwent Inktense pens, there's no label to be found, and that means we have to do some different due diligence. The same on this Derwent Watercolor. So instead, you can even just go onto the company websites, and many companies will have these forms. These forms, or safety data sheets, are valuable resources that provide in-depth information about all of their paints. They will categorize them into hazardous and non-hazardous, and the big brands, certainly Daniel Smith and companies like that, will offer lots of insights into the potential hazards, the composition, the concentration of each paint. Not all companies have this, of course, but a very kind viewer who actually raised this subject, or one of many who raised this subject, this kind viewer, Sam, and thank you, Sam, actually forwarded me an email chain they'd had with Magello, which is another company who don't have a safety data sheet, and Magello were very open about what's in their paints. That said, if it's not officially published, can you trust it as much? It's difficult to know, isn't it? So this is where it gets from murky to challenging, and it becomes a very difficult thing to know if our paints are truly non-toxic or not. So if you, like me, have got to the point where you're like, well, I have all these paints I know are toxic, I have a load of paints which might be toxic, and I have a load of other things which I just don't know because I have no information on. So what can I actually do? How can I be safe in using all these different paints? Well, that's where we come to looking at how to recycle and dispose of things. And there's a whole long list of people you can contact in your local area and look at official regulations, which will differ from one recycling centre to another. And the best advice I can give is, if you are recycling paints or disposing of them, then just a little email out into your local council or your municipality, whatever you call it in your country. That might be all you need to get a really clear and simple answer. But of course it might not. So instead, let's look at some best practices. Now, these aren't necessarily things with evidence, but they are, as I look around, as I've asked people, as I've read around on forums, they are the things which people do and are believed to be the best practices, and indeed are recommended in many places by the manufacturers of the paints as the best ways to dispose safely of our paints and our water. So there's a couple of key ideas here that are the common themes in how to dispose of your waters. The first is the idea of allowing the pigment to settle. So if you leave a tub of paint water for a day or two, you'll find you have some slightly murky but sort of transparent, translucent water, and then at the bottom you'll have a load of gunge. And what many manufacturers recommend you do is you let that settle, you pour out the water, and then you wipe up the gunge and dispose of that in the local way, or essentially into landfill, so that it's not entering the water, not entering the soil. That's one option. The problem with that is when you pour out the water, what I found is you're not just pouring out the water. Inevitably, some of the sediment at the bottom ends up in there. Or, on the other hand, you can pour out only half the water and make sure none of the sediment enters. Then you're having to use reams and reams of tissue to soak up all this. And that's another environmental problem, which we're already aware of as artists using lots of paper. So the next idea is to evaporate it. So here you basically want a approved evaporation container in a safe place, so not in your room where you're just letting all these fumes evaporate into your face. And then you just let that dirty water evaporate for a long time. And then you can just dispose of strictly what will only be the dry waste, the toxic parts. I just don't know, for me, I don't know whether those potential fumes being inside your house, will that be enough, say with the chromium, to be that prolonged exposure we need to get lung problems or lung cancer? So I feel a bit uneasy about doing that inside. So I had to look around, what do other people do? Another method which is seemingly quite good and popular is the filtration method. So literally using a coffee filter or something like that, you can apparently strain out a lot of the toxic compounds. I'm not certain. I haven't found anyone who's formally tested this and seen that really does all the heavy metal come out, or is it just the lumps of heavy metal that are big enough to be strained out by a coffee filter? So I'm on the fence whether this is certainly a neat solution, but is it really going to be that effective? The next thing that I thought was really rather clever was using a sand bucket. So if you just have a sand bucket out in your garden and you pour your water into that, the idea is that that will then evaporate out slowly and safely. That sand is now contaminated, but you've got a long time for that water to evaporate, to enter the air rather than your enclosed house, garage or garden. And I guess if it's raining really heavily, you need to have a lid on it or something, or put it under cover so that it's not just filling up with other water and bubbling over. Because as soon as it's going to fill and overfill, well, then you've just got really concentrated toxic sand entering the environment instead. And that is actually all I could find. I really want to end this video by going, look, here's the solution. This is the perfect solution. What am I going to do? Well, I'm probably going to gradually reduce my use of cobalt. Cobalt is the main pigment I found in my collection, which is a problem for me potentially and for the environment. So I'm going to reduce my use of that. And I'm probably going to pop a sand bucket into my garage. It's too wet here for things to evaporate properly otherwise. I've tried the pigment settling method and I wasn't comfortable with how much paper that meant I was then using to safely dispose of it. So I'm going to try dissolving things, evaporating rather, things from a sand bucket and see if that makes me feel better, makes it just seem like I'm actually solving the problem a little bit. And I guess also just think that we should be more aware. I don't know how I've been so unaware that, for example, my cobalt has been an issue for the environment, and I have been at times pouring my water down the drain, not recognising how much of an issue I could be creating. Realistically, the amount of cobalt and cadmium and things in watercolour, if we're using lots of water and a tiny bit of pigment, is a much smaller problem than in acrylic paints or oil paints. We're just not using the same burden of pigment, but it's still a problem. So I think we need to do something about it. Let me know below in the comments anything I've got wrong. I need to know these things, and everyone else I think needs to know them as well. Let me know if you have better solutions or things you've read or heard, or are there other toxins I should have mentioned. This is, me having to be humble, having to go, I've definitely been getting it wrong. So I really want to know all the other ways I'm getting it wrong so I can get it right in the future.